Hello everyone, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Welcome to this initiative where we are discussing practice questions from the mains point of view. Okay, so before continuing with this particular video, I want you to watch the first video in this particular playlist where I have discussed what should be the introduction for the mains question, how should you write the body of the answer, and how should you formulate the conclusion for that particular answer. At the same time, it is very important to know that how much should be the introduction, how much should be the body of the answer, and what is the quantity of the conclusion. Okay, so if you want to get the information about these things, it's very much important that you watch the first video in this particular playlist and then continue with this particular video. Okay, now let's begin for the question for today. Today's question is related to GS3 and it's a very important one. We look at the question, discuss some challenges that startups face in India and how can they be solved. See, outrightly, the question that is asked can be easily divided into two important components. And you coming to this conclusion that you will have to divide the question into two important components is very important before you even start writing the answer, because you will have to address the demand of the question based on the components. Okay, here the first component says discuss some challenges that startups face in India. Okay, so this is giving you a hint for you to make sure that in the introduction of the question, you will have to stick to write about startups. You have to write about the startups in the introduction. See, either you can write India is the startup hub, okay, for the entire world, or you can also write, you can pick cities which are startup epicenters in India, like for example Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, or you can also talk about what is the definition of a startup. Okay, what is the definition of a startup? Okay, or a third and the important, or I would say writing such introduction, the third one that I'll be telling you now will be most appropriate, and also not many people would do this research. If you look at this data, India is home to 107 unicorns. Okay, recently while going through the newspaper, you would have picked up this particular fact. Make a note of this and remember this and use it in the introduction. That is facts. Okay, so these are three different ways that in which you can write the introduction for specifically this particular question, which asks about the challenges that the startups face in India. First, you have defined what is a startup, then you are going to write about the challenges faced. If you look at this data, it's home to 107 unicorns. What are unicorns? That startup companies which are valued more than 1 billion, okay, dollars is called as a unicorn in India. So in India we have 107 unicorns. Okay, which means, so what is a startup? Let's talk about what is a startup. Startup is any company that has been started less than 7 years. Any company which has been started less than 7 years is called as a startup in India. So which means a new firm that has been started is nothing but a startup. Okay, so let's talk about the challenges that these startups face in India. See, you can know that whenever a company is getting started for the first time, you will have a crunch with respect to infrastructure. The financial crunch is the biggest one, and the dearth of talent pool, that is skilled labor, clear. So and lack of government policies, marketing strategy. So these are some of the general challenges that the startups actually face in India. Let's look at them. Lack of forward thrust to innovation. Forward thrust to innovation. See, at the end of the day, innovation is nothing but the R&D, research and development. And R&D is a long-term measure that starts giving result over a period of time. So the gestation period of the research and development or the innovation is very long when we look at the startup research and innovation. because startups can't take that burden of investing a lot of money in research and development for a long period of time and without getting returns out of it. So the biggest problem is the lack of forward thrust to innovation. Scalability concern. Okay, see, the startups which are created have to increase their capacity and scale of operation. Only then a startup can become an MNC going forward. Okay, so the biggest problem is about the scalability. The startup of today should not remain as a startup of tomorrow. It should evolve into a MNC. Marginal penetration in the space sector. There are some sectors in India, like for example space, like for example railways. These are the places where the innovation is very very bad, and innovation is very much restricted. The startup interference is very much restricted. Same was the case with respect to India's defense, but as of now we don't have the problem with respect to defense because the defense sector is open to the private sector in India. So marginal penetration in the space sector. Hiring and retaining the top talent. India is facing a problem of brain drain. Okay, brain drain, which means the top pool of top talent as we can call this, even though people graduate from NITs and IITs, after they graduate from NITs and IITs they land up in doing their masters abroad. Okay, and they get absorbed by the leading tech companies, maybe Apple, Google, Facebook, or any other such companies, or Amazon, let's say. So because of this, India is facing a problem of brain drain. Though we have skilled labor, but they're not available in India for a startup company. Infrastructure challenges. See, infrastructure challenges will be a common challenge for all the developing countries. Correct. Lack of recognition by the government and also by the finances. So these are some of the challenges that the India's startup sector is actually facing. Now see, after identifying the problem, the next important thing that we got to do is come out with a scheme or come out with some solutions to tackle these challenges. So what did we do to tackle these challenges? India came out with a program called a Startup India Initiative, a very important Startup India initiative. So along with this Startup India, we also came out with Stand Up India and Invest India. See, Invest India is a scheme to attract foreign direct investment into India's manufacturing and the startup sector. Okay, so these are some of the important schemes that were launched: Startup India, Stand Up India, Invest India. Along with this, some other schemes were launched in order to skill the skill the labor so that they can be absorbed by the startups. National startup awards are being conducted year on year in order to incentivize the innovation in the startup sector. SEO Startup Forum. SEO Startup Forum has been started. Praramb is a competition for startup ideas. So if at all this in Praramb, if at all one particular concept or an idea gets boosted, then the seed money flows through, then a lot of partnership will flow through, so that that particular idea can be converted into a startup company, and giving employment to the India's labor or demographic dividend becomes very very important. And that is the reason why from 2014, when this government came to power, it started stressing more on Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat. As a part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have a very important scheme, very important aim of the government, that is Make in India initiative. So these are some of the things that were done by the government in order to give boost to the startup sector in India. Okay, I hope you have understood this question. Now let's move on. Second question for the day. India has to change its growth focused policies to people centric ones in order to stop the economy's downturn. See, this, I won't classify this to be a purely economic question. This has something to do with the environment concepts also. Okay, because it is talking about the people centric policies. India has to change its growth focused policies to people centric policies. Okay, because it is talking about sustainable development. First one, why did we even come out this? In the introduction, you can talk about Niti Aayog's report, which says that 120 Indian cities will run out of the groundwater by the end of 2030. It's a very important fact that was given by the Niti Aayog. Now, if you talk about need for the people-centered economic policy, why should we even do it? See, India has the largest population in the world. Okay, so because of that, we have the problems of drinking water, we have the problems with respect to space, okay, the livability. We also have the problem of pollution. India is home to the world's most polluted cities, and Indian capital is one of the world's most polluted cities. Okay, so because of all these, we have population explosion and we have low HDI, human development index. India ranks above 100, and it is the most water stressed large economy in the world. Again, I told you, we have a problem with space, we have a problem with air, we also have problem with water, polluted cities, and jobless growth. So because of all these reasons, we'll have to shift our focus from growth centric to people centric. So if you're talking about people centric, one thing that is very sure, that we'll have to stress more on inclusive growth. So now you might ask, what is inclusive growth? Sharing the fruits of growth and development with all the stakeholders is simply called as inclusive growth. So inclusive growth is the most important one. Increasing in the PDI. PDI stands for personal disposable income. Focus on the labor intensive sectors, like for example, textiles is a labor intensive sector, and leather industry, it's a labor intensive sector. Okay, so the more focus should be given to these sectors in manufacturing than services. Agricultural mechanization is the most important thing if you want to double the farmers income, because let's say 40% of India's population still depends upon agriculture or the allied activities, and if we want to make sure that these people have higher PDI, and if these people have higher HDI, then the only thing that we can do is agricultural mechanization to boost their income. So this is about the way forward and the conclusion. So if you've liked the video, hit the like button and also subscribe Legacy IAS Academy for more such enriching content. Have a nice day.